So Indiana Jones and the Great Circle was released late last year to a fantastic reception, and it has finally been released on PS5, and I want to get the Platinum Trophy for it. I wouldn't call myself a massive fan of the movie franchise, but I do like the first and third movies. The game has a total of 46 trophies, 8 related to the main story, 9 are unlocked from side missions, and there's 29 for collectibles and miscellaneous trophies. And those collectibles, oh boy, there are a lot of them. The Archivist Trophy requires 519 collectibles. And that isn't even all of the collectibles we need to get, and from doing some research, it seems to be quite buggy. And if you do enjoy the video, giving it a like and subscribing to the channel does help smaller channels like mine grow, and I would massively appreciate it. So, with all the details out of the way, it's time to finally start the game. And we begin in South America in a video game remake of the opening scene from the first Indiana Jones movie. Indiana goes through the same steps from the movie, finding the tomb, getting past all of the traps, and grabbing the idol before having to run to escape. And at the end of the tunnel, we unlock the trophy Golden Idol, as Indiana Jones is crushed by the boulder. He suddenly wakes up in his school office to loud noises. Indiana goes off to investigate and confronts a very large man speaking Latin. After a short fight, Indiana Jones is knocked out. Indiana is then woken up by Brody, a friend of Indiana, and they both discover that the man has stolen a cat mummy and has left a clue, a medallion with the seal of the Vatican archives. Indiana, realizing there must be more to this than a simple theft, gathers his things and heads to the Vatican to get the cat mummy back. And then we unlock the trophy, the Break-In. Indiana heads off to the Vatican to meet someone called Antonio, a contact Indiana has within the Vatican, and is told to meet him in a village just outside as it's too dangerous inside the Vatican right now. Indiana arrives at night and heads through the village to the Vatican walls, and on the way we unlock the following trophies: Your Own Medicine, for knocking out an enemy with their own weapon; Literary Bug, for learning a skill from a book; and The Right Notes, for knocking out an enemy with a guitar. Indiana finally meets up with Antonio and takes him to his office to sleep for the night. After waking, Indiana shows Antonio the medallion dropped by the giant. Antonio tells Indiana that the only reference to giants he knows of were from a priest called Crescenzo from the 16th century, where he called them fallen angels. And he gives Indiana a priest outfit to disguise himself around the Vatican. After putting it on, a priest called Ventura walks in and warns Antonio that Indiana is his responsibility. Indiana then heads down to the library to try and find the symbol, and discovers it on a wall. He places the medallion in, turns it, and it opens up a secret door. He explores the underground passage below and discovers the skeletal remains of the priest Crescenzo, and a map with his inscriptions. Antonio tasks Indiana with obtaining a camera from a Lost and Found section, and after purchasing the camera, Indiana tests it by taking a photo of the store owner. This unlocks the trophy Echo. Indiana then goes and takes 4 photos of inscriptions made by Crescenzo and takes them back to Antonio. And on the way to taking them back, we unlock the trophy Field Survey for collecting 50 field notes. After analysing them, they come to the conclusion that they point to the direction of the Tower of Nicholas V, where a giant's tomb supposedly lies. So Indiana heads to the tower and goes underground via a secret entrance and solves a puzzle, opening yet another secret entrance to an underground labyrinth. After exploring this vast network of tunnels, Indiana comes across the tomb and tries to open it with a secret button. However, the button causes a large section of the cavern to fall and crash into the tomb, destroying the tomb, revealing skeletal remains and a parchment. And it reveals a secret monastery for something called the Nephilim Order, located at the Fountain of Confession. As Indiana finishes reading the parchment, the cavern caves in with a bulldozer falling through the ceiling. This causes the area to be flooded with Italian soldiers, and Indiana has to make his way through a side door. Indiana loops his way around and manages to escape. And upon exiting, he witnesses a nun lockpicking a door and follows her. Indiana follows her to a balcony in the Sistine Chapel. And as they speak, a giant zeppelin flies over the building. Indiana looks through some binoculars and sees a historical Italian dictator, which I'm not sure YouTube will let me say, along with Father Ventura meeting with another man accompanied by German soldiers. Indiana says that the man is called Emmerich Voss, a German archaeologist, leader of an occult research program. Through this information, the nun suspects that Indiana is not a priest, so she takes a look at his diary and uncovers his actual identity. And Indiana suggests that the nun is actually a reporter, to which she admits. And she says that she is looking for her missing sister, Laura Lombardi, an expert in ancient languages, who she believes was taken by Emmerich Voss, and she reveals her name to be Ginetta Lombardi. After this, they agree to work together. Next up, Indiana heads off to the fountain to find the entrance to the Nephilim Sanctuary. But this is the point where we would head on to the next location in the game. So, we stop and finish some more trophies in the Vatican first, including a nun in trouble for completing a side quest for rescuing a nun, pest control for hitting someone with a fly swatter, the mad priest for completing a side quest involving retrieving Crescenzo's diary, a savage discovery for completing a side quest involving rescuing a young archaeologist, Path of Junior for photographing all the inscriptions, a little tumble for pushing an enemy off a ledge, When in Rome for completing all Vatican mysteries, and Shutterbug for photographing 50 things for the journal. And with those done, it's time for the final mission of the Vatican. At the Fountain of Confession, Indiana solves a puzzle to open the fountain's walls, and solves another set of puzzles to open up the entrance to the Nephilim Sanctuary. Indiana and Gina head down to the sanctuary into a large room filled with swinging pendulum traps. Indiana and Gina easily navigate this and enter into another puzzle room. Indiana solves both puzzles, creating a set of keys to open a larger door to a church-like room. They traverse up into a room and discover a hidden path behind a painting, rushing in when they hear footsteps approaching. Following a path, Indiana finds another socket for the giant's medallion and uses it to enter the Vatican's treasury of artifacts. Indiana finally finds the cat mummy when suddenly the giant, named Locus, from the college appears, demanding that Indiana put the artifact down. Indiana does so, and a fistfight breaks out. Indiana eventually knocks him out, but he then hears footsteps approaching again. Father Ventura walks in with that naughty Italian man and Voss, along with his German soldiers. Voss takes the cat mummy and smashes it to the ground, revealing a shaped stone inside. After depositing it inside a briefcase, he orders his German soldiers to smash all the other mummies, revealing more stones inside. Indiana and Gina both rush off to follow Voss up to the Zeppelin. Gina manages to get in, but Indiana is left behind, having to find a way using the scaffolding outside. He stealths his way through the tower before being confronted by the Father Ventura and Italian soldiers. Locus then appears behind Ventura, creating a distraction for Indiana to run up to the final staircase. And he uses his whip to latch onto the Zeppelin, and with Gina's help, manages to climb into the Zeppelin. And this unlocks the stolen cat mummy trophy. Indiana then explains what the Great Circle is. The Great Circle is a line across the earth, linking multiple ancient ruins, and that Voss believes that the stones are linked to it. The pair then travel in the Zeppelin to Giza, Egypt, following Voss. They meet up with Gina's contact, Noel, and is told that Voss is after the idol of Ra. Indiana concludes that there may be another stone inside the idol. First, Noel tasks Indiana with finding stone stelae, stone tablets, around the area to smuggle them to a museum in Cairo. Indiana gets all 4 of these stelae and hands them over, and during this, we unlock the trophy Bread is Life for eating Ashbaladi bread, I think that's how you pronounce it, and for obtaining the last stele, we unlock the trophy Secrets of the Queen Mother. In order to get more intel on Emmerich Voss's plan to find the Idol of Ra and the location of Laura Lombardi, Indiana and Gina now have work passes to sneak into the large German compound, by the way of the Great Pyramid excavation site. An insider has marked the entrance to a tomb, with the tunnel leading directly into the compound. They travel through the underground tunnels and are attacked by a horde of scorpions. They eventually get out and enter the compound. They travel up to where the flag is and lower it, triggering one of Noel's people to activate an explosive on the other side of the base, creating a distraction for Indiana to get into Voss's office. Indiana and Gina sneak up to the office but discover that Voss is not there, but they do find Laura's journal. Gina then spots Voss arriving to a building across the base. Indiana and Gina head over there, sneaking again, and get into the attic of a building, now able to eavesdrop on Voss and his men. They witness Voss and Gantz argue, when the ceiling collapses. After the crash, Indiana and Voss meet face to face. Voss is held at gunpoint by Gina, and Indiana expects the giant's body on the table. He concludes that the language of the writing is Adamic, and says that's what Gina's sister was researching. Gantz then attacks the two, and a fight breaks out. Gina knocks herself out by hitting her head on a shelf, but Indiana Jones hits both Voss and Gantz with a chair shot. They then both escape with alarms in the background. They head outside and are attacked by soldiers, so they run under gunfire into an excavation shaft. The shaft collapses behind them, leaving Indiana, Gina, and Nawal, who was there to help them get out, leaving Gina separated from the other two. Indiana and Nawal head through the tunnels, looking to link up with Gina and escape. They both come across a hieroglyphic wall, and Indiana concludes that the answer to where the idol of Ra is located at the Sphinx. And this is another point where we will end up in another location if we continue the story, so we finish up some stuff in Giza first, including finishing all the mysteries in Giza. This unlocks the trophy Secrets in the Sand for doing so. A Savage Predicament trophy is unlocked by saving the young archaeologist again. Sanctuary of the Guardians is for completing a side mission of the same name. It Belongs in a Museum for collecting all 10 stellae. And Bookworm for learning 10 abilities from skill books. And with those done, we can continue on with the main story. Indiana heads to the Sphinx and examines the Dream Stella, key to finding the idol of Ra, and concludes that the Stella is actually a map. He heads to the location it points to and heads down into an underground tunnel. He comes across another puzzle, which is easily solved. By the way, all the main story puzzles in this game were quite easy. I found that all the harder ones were in side missions. And the floor underneath gives way, leading to a vast underground. Indiana makes his way around the edge due to the underground bridge being destroyed, and gets into another chamber, this time incredibly dark. He walks around with coins on the floor making noise under his feet. He eventually finds a statue with something missing in it. It's then when a blind giant attacks, starting a boss fight in the pitch black darkness. Indiana can activate lights on the floor and has to avoid making noise to attract the giant. After a few melee hits, Indiana fires a few bullets into the giant from range, putting him down and taking the pendant as the key for the statue. Indiana heads through the passageway created and finds the idol of Ra. He then smashes it and takes the stone from inside. It's then when the room starts to fill with sand, and Indiana uses it to ride to an exit. And for completing this, we unlock the trophy, the Idol of Ra. However, he is then hit by an avalanche of sand and knocked out. He wakes up sometime later and is half buried in sand, with Voss standing over him. Voss takes the stone and leaves Indiana to his fate, but also mentioning a team in the Himalayas, and leaves. Gina and Nawal eventually find Indiana and get him to safety. They discuss Voss's plans, and Indiana is given a document. It states that a team in Peru found a stone, but that same team is now sending Morse code from the Himalayan mountains. Indiana and Gina take Nawale's boat and travel to the Himalayas to find the location of the Morse code and the stone they found. They arrive in the Himalayan mountains and discover a German battleship propped high in the mountains. They head up towards it and find a way inside. They explore the inside of the ship, discovering frozen bodies of German soldiers inside, and eventually come across the body of Laura, Gina's sister. As they sit and talk, they hear Voss's team arrive. They head through the ship trying to get to the captain's room, stealthing past Germans along the way until they finally get in. They find the stone, but a German soldier walks in before they can grab it, and a fight breaks out. The fight is halted by Gantz, who leads Indiana Jones out of the room, while Gina hides with the stone. After a short conversation, Gantz threatens to execute Indiana, but Gina interrupts, claiming she has the stone and will give it to them. But instead, she hands over a live grenade. Gantz throws the grenade overboard, and the explosion triggers a landslide, sending the ship down the mountain. Indiana makes his way up the ship, and we unlock the trophy, A Harsh Climb, for completing this section. The boat eventually tips on its side, leaving Indiana and Gina dangling off one of the masts. Indiana then realizes the power of the stones for teleportation, and uses it to escape the situation. Indiana and Gina are then both teleported to Shanghai, China, which is under attack from the Japanese. They make their way through the bombed out city, encountering a Japanese pilot, and eventually spotting a plane on a rooftop. Gina, knowing how to fly, so she can use it to escape. They both head over to the plane and board it. With Indiana manning the rear gun turrets, they fight off Japanese planes, but eventually the plane takes too much damage, so Indiana hijacks a Japanese plane mid-flight. Gina jumps on board, and we unlock the trophy Into the Fire for completing the mission. They then head off to Sukhothai, the nearest location on the Great Circle. They arrive at night to a hotel, and Indiana gets on the phone to his friend Brody and finds out that Indiana has been fired from the college and is interrupted by Locus again, who warns Indiana to leave. After this, Indiana and Gina head to their hotel room and speak on the balcony. However, gunshots and explosions ring out. Local rebel forces have attacked an Italian garrison here, and Indiana and Gina are stuck in the middle of it. They fight alongside the rebels and try to escape, heading through a back room towards a boat. They board it and head towards a small village, and upon arrival they witness Voss talking to the local village leader, who is complaining about the rebel attacks on his excavation sites. After this, we head back to some of the previous locations to do a bit of cleanup there, and for transporting back to Marshall College, we get the trophy Filling in the Blanks. Back in the Vatican, we get Little Horn for eating a cornetto, we get Celestial Delights for eating a starfruit, we get Offensive Defense for knocking out an enemy with only counters. We get Apple of Discord for throwing an apple at an enemy's head. And in Gaza we get a Slippery Customer for dodging a power punch. Back in Sukhothai, Indiana talks to the village elder, who tells him of a local story of a temple hiding something called the Blessed Pearl, which he saw as a young boy. To get to the temple, they are told they will need an underwater breathing device, so Indiana heads off to a local merchant to buy one. Unfortunately, it's too expensive for Indiana to buy, so he heads off to one of Voss's camps to steal some money. He obtains 2,000 in the local currency in gold bars, more than enough. And on the way back, Indiana stops at a local fight club. He defeats all 3 opponents, and we unlock the trophy Tour de Force for defeating all 3 fight clubs. And afterwards, we buy the breathing device. After this, we complete some side content, getting trophies for the following: Beneath the Surface for completing all the mysteries in Sukhothai, The Kid Who Vanished for finding a young archaeologist who went missing, Lost in the Past for completing a side mission while Indiana hallucinates on frog poison, Tuned In for getting all the radio frequencies to Gina, A Study in Fear for investigating an excavation site using explosives, Gearhead for completing the Sukhothai gear puzzle, and Repatriation for returning all the lost artifacts. And with all of those done, we continue with the main story, and Indiana Jones and Gina make their way to the Blessed Pearl Temple. They encounter an initial puzzle which blocks the way, and it opens up into a vast lake. But in that lake lurks a giant snake. To get into the flooded temple, Indiana uses one of the pillars sticking out and heads down it. Using the new underwater breathing tool, he encounters the snake again. He continues through, the snake pursuing him until he reaches the inside of the temple. He reaches a tall cavern with a pillar in the middle and makes his way up, eventually encountering the snake again. This time, Indiana uses a trident to fend it off and continues up. Eventually, he gets to the very top and helps Gina up the side. They both head in and enter a room. They solve another puzzle and reveal a map. After this, Locus reveals himself again. Indiana tries a cheap shot and Gina throws a huge rock. However, the rock hits the floor and causes it to collapse. Locus falls through, but Indiana also falls after him, leaving the two to fight in knee-high water. After a short battle, the snake appears again and attacks. This time, however, Locus fights the snake bare-handed and defeats it. Gina interrupts the fighting once again and tries to convince Locus and Indiana to stop. Indiana uses this opportunity to hit Locus in the back of the head, and he and Gina leave to head to the next location on the map. As they arrive, Gina discovers markings on the floor as she and Indiana lift the stone, revealing a path inside. They head in and enter another puzzle room, this time one very similar to the one in the Blessed Pearl Temple, only life-size. They gather help from the village and Indiana places them in the correct positioning, opening the door. Indiana heads through, navigating a long parkour course and finds the Blessed Pearl itself. He smashes the statue and inside the stone is revealed. And in the traditional fashion, the cavern starts to deteriorate around him. He runs back and escapes, and upon exiting, he is met with Locus again. And it's then when Voss shows up and orders his men to open fire on Indiana, Gina, and Locus. With all 3 pinned down by gunfire, Locus uses the tomb cover as a shield, and Indiana and Gina follow him behind with the stones. They reach a point behind more cover, but are still pinned down. It's then when rebels appear, aiding the 3. They head down to a boat and are chased by Italian soldiers in other boats and trucks. Indiana tries to fend them off with my terrible aiming skills, but eventually the engine on the boat breaks. All three jump into the water, but they're heading towards a waterfall. Indiana manages to hang onto a branch, but Gina falls and gets captured by the enemy forces. Indiana moves to try and rescue her, but it's too late, and she has been captured by Voss. And we unlock the trophy, the Blessed Pearl, for completing this story mission. Indiana talks to Locus and they join forces to go and rescue Gina. They board a plane heading to Iraq and locate Gina. Indiana sees her being put into a building. Locus says the other giants are ready to aid him, so he calls to them to begin the attack. With the base under alert, Indiana uses this as a cover to go and get Gina. He locates her inside the building and rescues her. After they exit the building, we unlock the trophy Bookman for learning all available skills from the skill book. They then continue towards the entrance of the ruin, stealthing and knocking out guards along the way. They head down an elevator and open up large stone doors for the big reveal. Inside the ruin lies Noah's Ark. Indiana Jones tries to make his way into the Ark and heads through a tent and finds Locus unconscious inside, but is then confronted by Voss. They talk about the Ark and the giant flood, which was imbued with the power of the stones to teleport to each location in order to transport animals until the flood was over to repopulate the Earth. Gina appears behind Voss with a gun, tries to fire, but the gun is empty. Guards then flood the room and have them both held captive, and Indiana is knocked out. The Ark is hauled out of its cave with Indiana, Gina and Locus tied up on top, and Voss prepping the ship with the stones. He then says that he will be able to transport to any location on the planet with the stones, and plans to use it to transport the German army around the world in an instant. Voss places the stones into the wheel and chants the words needed to activate it, and upon the final word, seemingly nothing happens. However, a drop of water then lands on Voss. Voss has triggered another great flood, and chaos ensues. Indiana, Gina and Locus escape, with Indiana and Voss having a fist fight, and they both slide off the edge of the Ark and fight on the side in a really goofy way. It looks really stupid. Gina reaches and helps Indiana up, and this unlocks the trophy Atonement for completing the final mission, and we witness Locus steering the Ark. Locus tells Voss to move, but he does not, sending a beam of energy into Voss and activating the teleportation. Indiana and Gina jump off the back and the Ark heads into the teleportation field, disappearing along with Locus. Indiana and Gina wash up along the shore and we then see them at an airfield. Gina gets on board and the credits roll. But we're not quite done yet. We still have 3 trophies left and they have to be completed post-game. We go back in as Indiana and head into Voss's tent in Iraq again. This time we are free to walk around and we pick up the final relic, unlocking the trophy Shadows Out of Time for collecting all 50. And with those 50 relics, we solve a final puzzle. We place them into the wall and the wall opens up, unlocking the trophy Archivist for unlocking all the notes in the game. And this also unlocks the Platinum trophy, It's the Mileage. Indiana sees a design on the wall indicating Antarctica in the middle, and then we see a final secret cutscene of the Ark frozen over, with large, giant-shaped like footprints leading away in the snow, indicating that Locus may have survived, but unfortunately I don't think we will see him in any sequel, as the actor who played him, Tony Todd, passed away shortly before this game released last year. And that is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle complete. Overall, the game is fantastic. Absolutely loved the main story, and the 100% cleanup in the Vatican and Gaza was fun as well. Sukhothai, however, was a really bad experience for cleanup. Forced travel via a boat into small canals through multiple underwater dungeons for missed collectibles was a massive pain. The main story is fine there though. And if you did enjoy the video, giving it a like and subscribing to the channel would be massively appreciated. And hopefully I'll see you for the next video.